This moment right here, this gave me chills. Ripple Labs is reportedly raising $1 billion to buy its own token. That's very interesting because they do have an escrow of like 50% or 40% of the tokens in it. So instead of selling those tokens, they could just take the escrow tokens, but no, they want even more XRP. Sounds small though, right? 1 billion, only about 10 to 15% of XRP supply is actually liquid. Let that sit in. 10 to 15% of XRP supply is actually liquid. That means Ripple is targeting up to 8% of the active float. Folks, that's a supply shock. Right before institutional adoption hits, they're pulling liquidity off the table while everyone else's eyes are on Bitcoin. You have to ask yourself, why now? I think it's pretty simple. They know what's coming. The full breakdown in this morning's YouTube video. Click it down below. We connect every piece of the puzzle.
Good morning, guys. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite crypto news related channel. And today we've got a bunch of very exciting topics that we're going to be breaking down. But obviously, the title of today's episode, Ripple is leading an effort to raise at least $1 billion to accumulate the XRP token. Yes, you read that correctly. And we're going to be breaking this down in great detail. But I wanted to go over some other topics during the live stream as well, because I got to save some content for the 5:30 release for you guys. We are also going to be talking about the great crypto collapse that happened over the weekend. And what did this expose about Ethereum? Because once again, people were paying over $1,000 to send a $10 transaction on the Ethereum network. We're going to provide the details into that latest argument. I've also got a brand new update from Raul Paul. Now, while the entire crypto market seems to be bearish, newer investors calling for a bear market, telling us to sell our XRP, it's time to get out. Older crypto investors are staying optimistic, and they're calling for what they've been calling for since the beginning. A 35% correction. Retail investors tell the world that it's over, but it won't be over. It will be the beginning of some new bullish momentum for the crypto space. Now, we are going to cover some of the daily movers today, guys, but we already passed 1,000 live listeners on the show. If you enjoyed today's content, show us some love. Smash that like button. A big thank you to anybody who shows up and enjoys these morning live streams. How we're going to be doing it going forward, I'm going to give you a live stream in the morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. You're also going to get that 5:30 p.m. Eastern update. So stick around, guys. 2 videos a day, the most consistent and hardworking team in crypto. Shout out to my boy, Johnny Krypto. Now, again, today's going to be an exciting episode, but bear with us because I wanted to cover some of the daily movers and some of the relative price action that we've been going through in these last 48 hours or so. Bitcoin currently trading at about 106,000 now. Bitcoin fell below 105 this morning. Blockchain Backer gave us a fairly relevant update, and I can read that for you guys. He said to add some context onto these bigger time frames, there are signals of what happens before each liquidation event. The biggest liquidation in history occurred on October 10th, and the indicators have gained momentum to the downside. So we could be experiencing some bearish momentum heading into the next week or so. But again, a lot of things are working in our favor. It's very interesting that people are turning overly bearish because even for an asset like Bitcoin, because we're going to break down XRP all throughout today's show, Bitcoin is still trading above $105,000, and anything below, anything above, 89,000. We're in a bull market, and we're going to see some bullish momentum come up towards the back end of this month. Now, as for Ethereum is down about 5% on the day, trading at $3,777. XRP is trading at $227. Solana is $179. We got Dogecoin trading at 18. Cardano is 62 cents. Chainlink is 16.5. AVAX is $20, and Tadera trading at about 15 cents this morning. Now, you guys know I always talk about this. The value of Merlin is that you can have a realistic perception for your entire crypto portfolio, but the opposite end of that is knowing when to enter on many of these projects. The one thing that I do find very optimistic and exciting about what's going on right now for the crypto space is that retail investors feel as if being bearish is the safe call. I don't feel that way necessarily right now. We're in the midst of a government shutdown. Fed is going to continue to reduce rates. We'll have the ETFs approved, the Clarity Act passed, and we're going to see billions of users onboarded into the crypto market. But the question that I asked our live chat today, guys, was do you believe we get a $4 XRP or a $1.50 XRP first? I'd love to hear in the live chat. And I'm talking daily closures, not just a massive liquidity wick like we witnessed over the weekend. But with that being said, we're going to start diving into many of the exciting topics that we have prepared for today. Now, I forgot to give you this update as well. Ripple announced a brand new $1 billion acquisition yesterday, breaking into the $120 trillion corporate treasury payment market. with the billion-dollar acquisition of G Treasury. Now, for anybody who watched me and Johnny Crypto's update last night, we broke down that this gives access to 13,000 banks through this new collaboration. And during today's episode later on, I'm going to show you how Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and Swift are all connected to G Treasury. But to begin today's episode, we're going to start talking about that massive liquidity event that happened over the weekend, as veteran investor here, Kevin O'Leary, was talking about the flaws of the Ethereum network. And this is something I've highlighted on this show since probably 2023. Ethereum has a scaling issue. It's too slow, it's too expensive, and now it's an infinite network. There's more Ethereum printed every single day put into circulation. That is something that you never hear the mainstream investor talk about. Ethereum, and we're going to check this on CoinMarketCap just to prove it to you guys, is an infinite asset. You can print Ethereum into oblivion. So for all of these people who are very anti-XRP because Ripple controls 50% of the supply, at least we know what the max supply is. As you guys can tell, I'm zooming in right now. The max supply for Ethereum is infinity. There you have it, guys. So keep that in mind as we kind of go through today's topics, because a lot of the things that they say negative about the XRP ledger, they don't find those narratives relevant for many of our other favorite crypto projects. But quick reminder, if you enjoy this content, smash that like button. Greatly helps us out on the YouTube algorithm. And as you guys can tell, I'm ramping up the content. You're getting twice a day. You will get an update once live in the morning, then again at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'll probably have a video out for you guys over the weekend as well. So big thank you to anybody who watches and enjoys the content. It's been really great to hear all your positive feedback. But let's listen to what Kevin O'Leary had to say, because here's the big tweet that got put out yesterday. Got over 1 million views in under 24 hours. He said, over the weekend, I noticed something that every crypto investor should pay attention to. Ethereum, the largest blockchain in the world, got congested and fees skyrocketed past $1,000 just to process a small transaction. So again, this will never happen on the XRP ledger. Keep that in mind as we go through this whole thing, because the inevitable conclusion here for somebody like Kevin O'Leary is that there's better technologies that don't have these flaws. That's like paying $1,000 toll to drive on a one-lane highway. It proves what I've been saying for years. When the real traffic hit the system, it cracks under pressure. For over a decade, we've talked about going on chain. And now with real-world adoption finally happening, said Kevin O'Leary, the cracks are showing in this technology. Innovation isn't just about hyper speculation. It's about building infrastructure that can actually handle scaling. So congrats to all the people who are betting on the evolution of this tech, because Hedera, XRP, these are the ecosystems that don't have this problem. But let's listen to what Kevin O'Leary had to say, and then we'll break it down.
I anticipate that you're going to be crashing Wall Street with the blockchain, with crypto. So we've been talking about going on chain for 12 years. Never happened. But now with the stimulus of the Genius Act, for the first time ever, people are starting to use it as a digital payment system. And in order to do that, you have to go on chain. You have to go on to the Ethereum or the Solana. You got to go on chain. You have to sell and buy on chain. So over the weekend, and the reason I bring it up, a concern that I've had for a long time, and I've seen it before, is that Ethereum, the biggest blockchain, if you think about ETH, and what's really stimulated it has been that maybe 30% of all transactions on stablecoins are being settled on Ethereum or transferred on Ethereum or paid on Ethereum. But over the weekend, when we had real volatility for various reasons on crypto, Ethereum itself got stuck. It got overloaded, overcrowded. And the best analogy I can use for this is if you think about a single lane highway with a toll booth. Ethereum is a single lane highway and all the cars are transactions on it, but they have to go through the authentication toll booth out in the middle of nowhere. So they all have to drive through the toll booth, and it works fine when there's not massive volatility or massive volume. But when we had that occur, both massive volatility and massive volume on Saturday, it got stuck. There were too many cars on the highway. And so the cost of clearing one of those transactions, that's how you tell it's stuck. Because you can buy your way to the front of the car line to get through the toll next to the fee. One of those transactions traded for more than $1,000. So imagine if you're buying something for $1.50 and you had to pay $1,000 to use Ethereum, that's screwed up.
There you have it, guys. And I can't believe that guys like Kevin O'Leary are just beginning to figure this out here in 2025. Ethereum has always had a scaling issue. And the only reason that Ethereum has been able to hold that #2 spot at the top of the market is because they have a monopoly on stablecoins, like Kevin O'Leary kind of highlighted. He said it's 30%. I've actually seen numbers much higher. I've seen as high as 49, 48% of stablecoin transactions happen on Ethereum. They also dominate with decentralized apps and smart contracts. So as more companies begin building and developing on some of these other blockchains, it's not just the XRP ledger, guys. This will work in favor of AVAX and Solana and Cardano and many others. They're going to see that market cap be pulled away from Ethereum. Ethereum is actively losing momentum. And I've said this for a really long time. I want to double down on it. Ethereum's prime was 2021, 2020. Ethereum is not in its prime anymore because when regulation gets passed, we're going to see so many new products being launched on all blockchains all around the world. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Ethereum fall from that number 2 spot. Guys, if you believe Ethereum will fall and another altcoin will rise to that number 2 digital asset, throw a 1 in chat. If you think Ethereum holds that top spot for the entire bull market, throw a 2 in chat as well. But why am I even playing this clip? Because again, we are witnessing the market evolve in real time. Whether it's Ripple going out and acquiring real companies, the US government beginning to regulate this digital asset class, Wall Street filing for ETFs so they can take advantage of all this bullish momentum in the space, we are seeing the active onboarding of retail investors in a way we've never seen before. Back in 2021, even when Bitcoin went from $3,500 during the COVID crash to north of $69,000 at the peak of the market, retail investors were not in the game. As believe it or not, the majority of retail investors showed up after Donald Trump was elected in 2024. And you can tell from the sentiment in this space less than 12 months ago. And this is going to be, kind of older information for some of our veterans out there in the XRP community. But you guys can see it right here. 365 days ago, what was the price of XRP? 53 cents on the dollar. 53 cents. That means $100 could have bought you about 185 units of XRP. Now we're looking at an environment where $100 is going to get you about 38 units of XRP, give or take. So even amidst all this chaos, the bearish momentum, people calling for the end, what are we seeing? Consistent building from both Ripple, the company, and people on the XRP ledger. We're seeing the US government be more outspoken about these technologies. And now we're seeing the Wall Street products come to fruition. And if the SEC, after this government shutdown is resolved, comes back into the office in late October, I would anticipate that we start seeing many altcoin approvals here in the month of October in 2025. So let me know some of your thoughts on that, chat, as well, because my anticipation is there's nothing stopping this bullish wave once Wall Street shows up to the party. And you got to think about this when it comes to Jake Claver, because I love Jake Claver's content. That's a whole nother narrative that I think people aren't factoring into this whole situation. As one company begins to move to real-time settlement, as one nation, he often references Japan, begins to make this massive switch to blockchain technology, every other country, every other corporation that's unwilling to use blockchain tech is now operating at a disadvantage. So we haven't seen that first domino fall, as Jake likes to say in the domino theory, but that's a whole nother facet of this market that is also going to unlock liquidity and bring it right into the blockchain space, guys. So keep that in mind as we go through this episode, because there's a bunch of different narratives. You have the Wall Street narrative, you have the US government narrative, you have the stablecoin narrative, you have the tokenized asset narrative, and then you have the migration to real-time settlement systems, which is what Jake always talks about. And I think he makes a bunch of really, really good points. But Ripple took a major step in that direction yesterday. As Ripple shared the groundbreaking news, they were going to be acquiring G Treasury for $1 billion. And what's the reality here? They are moving the TradFi system into the 21st century using Ripple's technology. Payments are where Ripple first started for exactly these reasons. The infrastructure is complex, it's siloed, and it's inefficient. But we all know perfectly positioned to benefit from decentralized financial technologies. Astounding amounts of cash are trapped in outdated payment systems, said Brad Garlinghouse, creating friction, unnecessary costs, and barriers to entering new capital markets. G Treasury has been serving some of the most well-known brands for decades. And now together with Ripple, we'll be able to tokenize CFOs managing all of their assets, including stablecoins, tokenized deposits, etc., at scale all around the world, as well as putting their idle capital to work with the repo markets via Hidden Road. And Brad closed it out by saying the opportunity is here. We're diving right in. It's happening. And I'll add this right now. We are still in the moment before many of these huge catalysts hit the American markets. But people may say, all right, great. So they're going to use stable coins, tokenized deposits, and et cetera to scale around the world. Why would this benefit the XRP ledger? Well, Max Avery also did a great analysis here. And I think it's pretty, he said, the upside's pretty obvious for XRP holders. every time a new institution starts using the XRP ledger to issue or trade tokenized assets, it adds volume, activity, and real world use cases. Ripple's been focused on turning the XRPL into the plumbing for trillions of dollars in tokenized assets, with the next generation infrastructure taking shape in real time. Call them crazy, but it feels like the XRP ledger's foundation for what is next. And that's what we're seeing Ripple kind of expand into this morning as we begin to break down the most exciting topic for today. The title of today's episode: Ripple's leading a $1 billion fundraiser for XRP. And I'm going to give you a little synopsis of what I really think is happening, and then we'll break down the details. It appears that Ripple wants to raise $1 billion to buy XRP while the price is low in this shaky capital market. They're doing this to make XRP more stable and attractive for big companies so that they can use fast global payments and modern settlement systems. It's like buying a lot of discounted candy when everybody wants to save on that same asset prior. So very simple to understand. They think the asset XRP is currently undervalued, and they want institutions to position themselves correctly prior to this major price appreciation that Ripple is betting is on the horizon. And there's a false narrative out there, guys. It's fake news, a big fake news story, that Ripple is not committed to the success of XRP. That couldn't be more incorrect. And Brad Garlinghouse gave us a lot of answers during this Bloomberg interview from a couple of months ago. Now, I shared this with you guys in late April, early May timeframe, but Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse made it very clear Ripple is focused on acquiring companies, not an IPO or ETF for the time being. So I'm going to play this very short 40-second clip. Then we'll begin breaking down the news story for today.
We have been in a very fortunate position to be able to grow
if it doesn't glitch
organically. We're also, frankly, more proactive in looking at acquisitions. This is an industry that finally is going to be able to thrive in the United States, the largest economy in the world. And I think the industry is still underestimating the shift from the headwinds to the tailwinds. That's going to make a bigger difference than people think. And finally, the U.S. market is really unlocked.
So it sounds like what you're saying, acquisitions are almost more of a priority now than an IPO for you. So then what would you be looking for to buy, and how big are you willing to go?
Well, I'm not going to name names, but look, Ripple at its core is a blockchain infrastructure company. We sell our technologies to business, primarily financial institutions, and we'll look at other things that are blockchain infrastructure company. We have been in a very fortunate.
There you have it, guys. And Brad Garlinghouse wasn't willing to say those names at the time, but given a couple months, we got those answers. And John Deaton put out a phenomenal thread. It appears that I may have deleted it in my prep, so I'm just going to go to his Twitter live right now for you guys, because John Deaton highlighted every single company that Ripple has gone out and acquired. And what's really similar about all these different companies is that they're TradFi companies that can upgrade their systems using the technology that Ripple has developed. So again, we're just going to go through these one by one very briefly. We acquired Hidden Road for $1.25 billion. That's a prime brokerage, a clearinghouse, and multi-asset infrastructure. They then tapped into the stablecoin market with a $200 million acquisition of Rail. This would boost Ripple's stablecoin infrastructure for payments, adding viral accounting, automated back-end strengths, and competitive position in the stablecoin market. They also acquired Medico and Standard Custody, allowing crypto custody, tokenization, and institutional custody services, giving Ripple a strong foothold in the institutional custody market. Then it was Fortress Trust and Algrim, which we've heard John Deaton talk about before. That's that algorithmic trading mechanism, fairly interesting product that Ripple has developed there. But what's the difference between what Ripple is doing and every other crypto company? Ripple is going right to the TradFi market. They're going to the biggest companies on the planet, and they're saying, hey, guys, we're not trying to wipe out your business. We're trying to make what you do better. And we have a real opportunity here to upgrade you guys and give you that first mover advantage that I'm sure every single financial institution is looking for. I do want to give a big thank you as we get into this article. I do see the donations coming in. If you enjoy this content, smash that like button. We already passed 325 likes on the program for today. Huge shout out and thank you to anybody who shows up, hits the like button or comments. But also a big thank you to the people who gave the live donations. Now, with that being said, we saw Ripple. They're going out. They're acquiring real companies. This morning, they are now leading this new demand for XRP. Ripple Labs is said to lead a $1 billion funding raise for an XRP hoard. Now, what is going on here? They're going out and telling companies why it's important to accumulate the XRP token. And this is a really important article that I want our listeners to pay attention to as we go through many of the details here. So Ripple Labs, the company behind the XRP ledger, is reportedly establishing an effort to raise at least $1 billion through a special purpose acquisition company, also known as a SPAC, to establish a new digital asset treasury, also known as a DAT, right? This vehicle would be dedicated to accumulating XRP tokens, with Ripple itself contributing a portion of its existing holdings. So the first question I asked myself when I saw this article was, why wouldn't Ripple tap into the $40 billion tokens that are sitting in their escrow today? Does that mean that Ripple has pre-allocated some of this escrow? I'd love for our listeners to kind of honestly ask themselves that question. Why wouldn't Ripple tap in to the 40 billion tokens that they have sitting in their escrow right now? It's a great question to ask. Well, I think it goes back to that initial video that I played to start off the episode, where the reality is there's only 10 to 15 billion XRP tokens circulating in the open market. So what Ripple is doing is they're creating more real demand for the XRP asset by going out to these other companies and explaining why it's valuable to add this asset and put it on their balance sheet. And they're even going as far to put some capital forward themselves. So Ripple, again, fully committed to XRP and driving new institutional use cases as well as demand. So this move comes amid the volatile crypto market, where the recent US trade tensions triggered nearly 19 billion in liquidations, wiping out 1.6 million individual traders. Bitcoin dropped only about 3%, but XRP dropped significantly more. We're currently trading at about $2.25 on the price chart. And so Ripple is pushing forward, signaling confidence in XRP's long-term value. This isn't an entirely new concept. We've seen companies like MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor use similar treasury strategies to accumulate Bitcoin. There's other companies like Singapore's Trident Digital, which went out and accumulated $500 million worth of XRP, and Japan's Metaplanet, which is acquiring, I believe, $8 to $10 million worth of the token. So much smaller numbers there, but the point is clear. Companies are going out, buying XRP, adding it to a treasury to make their company more valuable. And I showed you guys a clip of Anthony Pompliano yesterday, where he was talking about how there were plenty of companies who did this with Bitcoin. People were using Bitcoin as a treasury strategy to add value to their underlying company. We were reporting on this for a really long time, where companies out there that were failing, their price charts were down in the dumps, as they say. They announced that they were going to be having a treasury for Bitcoin, and you saw the asset go up 200, 300, 400% in a couple of trading days. Why wouldn't altcoin investors, why wouldn't people in the know, like Ripple Labs for XRP, promote that same narrative to traditional companies today, so that when XRP goes through this great price accumulation, whether it's in the next 12 months or the next 5 years, they have positioned themselves to capitalize on that opportunity? And if there's one thing that Bitcoin investors and XRP investors can agree on, it is the rapid depreciation of the US dollar. And companies all around the world need to find a way to expand the value of their company by 8 to 9% per year just to keep up with the rate of inflation. You heard that correctly. If a company's worth $100 million, they got to figure out a way to be worth $110 million by the end of the year just to keep the same value from a US dollar perspective. So keep that in mind, guys. People are desperate for solutions out there, and Ripple can finally offer some of these in the open market. But why would Ripple do this? What would even motivate them to go out and create a strategy where companies are now hoarding the XRP token and waiting for this price accumulation? Well, obviously, Ripple has billions and billions of dollars worth of exposure. The market cap right now, it's sitting at about $130 billion. Ripple already holds $4.7 billion directly, plus $35.9 billion in the escrow. Accumulation could amplify the gains if sentiment flips. So if we start seeing positive price action from any of these altcoins, XRP is just going to be one of these projects that outperforms, very similar to what happened back in 2024. Now, this would also have an opportunity to stabilize the XRP supply and reduce volatility. It's a concept that I've explained in regards to ETFs as well. When these ETFs products are live, there is going to be a consistent underlying demand from these large companies to buy the dip. If they're selling XRP at $3 to their clients, when XRP pulls back to $250, they're going to want to buy those lows and continue to sell those shares. That narrative can also be applied to this concept, where companies out there that are looking at an asset at XRP, which was $3.60 back in July, now it's $2.25. That's about a 40, 35% correction on the price chart there, guys, and a huge opportunity for people who know what is coming for many of Ripple's products in the American economy, like Ripple does, which is probably what they're teaching people. This is also going to boost institutional adoption and liquidity. But here's the interesting part. By pooling funds into a centralized treasury, Ripple can control buying and timed releases, which is going to smooth out some of the supply shocks to its monthly escrow unlocks. This controlled accumulation can provide a predictability for institutions that are weary of wild, volatile swings in the crypto market. MicroStrategy has a very similar model for Bitcoin, which has helped Bitcoin's narrative as a corporate reserve. Ripple aims to position XRP as a stable corporate treasury asset and helping real-world assets become tokenized in this new financial market. So you listen to people like Larry Fink, every stock, every bond will be tokenized. Ripple and Ondo, these are two of the companies that are responsible for bringing forward this next evolution in digital assets, where it's not price chart speculation, it's not meme coin launches, it's not just driven by the price action of Bitcoin anymore. We can now look at this market and go, oh, wow, JP Morgan is using blockchain services through the G Treasury strategy, and they're actually leveraging the RLUSD stablecoin. Or we can say a company like Standard Chartered is going to begin launching their own XRP strategy. All of these things that have been working in the background for years are starting to happen here in 2025. Now, the boosting of institutional adoption is pretty simple as well. A massive XRP treasury signals to banks and corporations that Ripple's all in on its token. It's encouraging cross-border payments, and it could draw more institutional inflows, especially now that the lawsuit is over with the SEC. It also ties into Ripple's $1 billion acquisition of G Treasury, which was announced just yesterday, which targets treasury software for tokenized deposits and stablecoins, unlocking the multi-trillion-dollar corporate treasury market. So this is hitting so many different facets of the market. It's a buy the dip situation. It's stabilizing the volatility. It's creating institutional adoption. It's also developing real demand for the XRP token, not demand that comes and goes, not just a liquidity wave that enters the market, but instead companies that plan on holding this asset for years to come, just like the thousands of people in our live chat today, guys. But if you're enjoying this content, you find this breakdown helpful, show us some love. Smash that like button. Obviously, Friday episode, I've got an exciting and funny video that we're going to play to kind of end today's show, where Brad Garlinghouse responded to this AI edit of himself. I think our listeners are going to really appreciate that. But I already passed. Let's check the live like counter, guys, and see what GEC is at right now. We are currently at 410 likes. Just want to give a huge shout out and thank you to anybody who watches and enjoys this program. We're going to continue to show up and give you these exciting updates every single day. 11 a.m. I'm live, 5:30 p.m. You're going to get those short form updates. But what is this really doing? The company Ripple has always advocated for the success of XRP, and actions speak louder than words when it comes to the crypto market as well. Look at what Ripple has done, just creating new demand for the underlying asset. When they launched the RLUSD stablecoin, people were claiming that this was a competitor to the XRP token and the XRP ledger. That is absolutely proven to not be the case. But I wanted to show you guys another video here. Now, anybody who saw the short form content, I did a pretty long breakdown of this one. This is Anthony Pompliano and Patrick Bet-David talking about Ripple and all of the acquisitions that they've been able to acquire here in 2025.
I understand it. Okay, I mean, that's a big deal to buy something like that at 1.25 billion. And the guy that's running it, I think his name is Brad. I can't say his last name. Yeah. He seems like a very intellectual guy. He's involved on I've seen him with the Trump administration, a couple different things with them. But he doesn't just sound like one of these guys that came and created a coin. Hey, let's sell a bunch of stuff and then let's go. They're actually creating technology and buying technology. Good for them. So you're optimistic because you hear some people talk about Ripple could replace Swift. Possibility of that, of course, the likelihood of that happening is less than 5%.
I wouldn't go that far. In terms of, I think I know Brad. I think Brad is a nice guy. I think that the strategy that they're pursuing at Ripple is, if you were in their situation, I think it's very smart to go and acquire these businesses. I've always just said that, my focus is on Bitcoin because I think of that there's two problems in the world that I care about, and they're very interrelated. The first is I believe that the single biggest issue, if you can correct this one issue, it will have a profound impact on people's lives around the globe, is if you can basically stop the debasement of the currency. If you can stop that, then all of a sudden now what you do is you stop this silent theft, and now you allow people to actually keep the economic value that they've worked hard to earn. And so Bitcoin to me is the solution to that problem. There's kind of this heuristic of people have been complaining about this for decades, centuries, right? If you go back through all these societies, Bitcoin is the first technology solution to the problem. And so I think that is a very profound solution that is going to have an impact that we quite don't understand yet, frankly. right? So I think that's one big problem. The second problem that I'm very interested in is this idea of the little guy or the quote unquote retail investor being able to get a level playing field against these large institutions. And I think that those two issues are very interrelated because now what we know in this country is you can't be a saver, you need to be an investor. As these retail folks realize I have to become an investor, they need access to information, they need access to the market. So that's my focus. That's where I think I'm most passionate about. That's what I'm most intellectually stimulated by. What these guys are doing, I think, is something that is different and outside of it. And so it's just not something I spend, any time on.
And this is what's so important about that short clip there, guys, is because a couple of years ago, remember, we were the outcast. People wouldn't take the XRP project seriously. They said they wouldn't even address what Ripple was doing. We were being sued for selling an unregistered security. Now we've entered a new time for the XRP community in general, because Ripple has received so much validation because of their relationship with the US government, as well as what they've been able to do on their acquisitions, that even Bitcoin investors and guys like Anthony Pompliano, who will do anything but compliment the XRP ledger and what they've developed over there at Ripple, they're now even admitting that, yeah, they've taken that Ponzi-nomic balance sheet and they've used that to acquire real companies. Well, that's something we've been saying forever. We always said Ripple is going to use that balance sheet to go out and acquire real companies. They still have $11 billion on their balance sheet that is liquid. They have $11 billion. I believe that Ripple's acquisitions, I don't think they're just getting started, but I think we're probably in like the third or fourth inning here. If this was a baseball game, shout out to the baseball fans. I think there's going to be plenty of A-tier acquisitions that Ripple is able to announce over these coming months. And for the most part, guys, our community, Good Evening Crypto, right here, right now, we have an understanding that the majority of these newer investors don't. They're so focused on the short-term price action. They want to make their money yesterday. That's just not how this market works. We have to be willing to ride these waves of volatility. And at the end of the day, the assets that survive will go up and to the right. It really is a matter of how much they go up, not if they will go up. But with that being said, we got 4,100 live listeners. If you enjoyed today's content, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to play a little, somebody asked for some Conspiracy Friday stuff. We got some cool videos that we're going to go through. Now, first of all, this is a video from Charles Hoskinson, the founder of Cardano, where he's saying that the Democrats are currently trying to kill the Clarity Act. Now, these are some strong political opinions from Charles Hoskinson here. I'm not even saying I agree with these opinions, but I do think it just goes to show there's a great divide right now in Congress about making crypto a political issue. And Brad Garlinghouse addressed this at the FinTech DC week, I think it was on Tuesday, where he said that crypto, it's like if the Democrats were anti-email and the Republicans were pro-email, or if the Republicans were anti-iPhone and the Democrats were pro-iPhone. That's kind of what Charles Hoskinson is highlighting here. He's like, this tribalism needs to go away for the betterment of the industry.
I don't understand you people on the left. I really don't. You're so thoroughly propagandized. What do you stand for? Honestly speaking, what do you stand for? You say you stand for democracy, and you don't get to pick your leaders. You stand for truth and transparency and an objective reality, and you're the party of science and the party of intellectualism. And yet you can't even admit when your leaders have dementia and cancer and they're deeply compromised. You say you stand for the rule of law and no one's above the law, but then you're all totally comfortable when Hunter Biden gets a blanket pardon. And we just have to move on. All the garbage with the Clinton initiative and this other stuff. You say you stand for equality and equity and combating systemic racism. And when we invent a money system that can end that for everyone everywhere, you want to go and destroy it, burn it to the ground, offshore it. Doesn't hurt white people like me who are rich. We can go offshore. Hurts the minorities in Chicago who can't. What do you stand for? Honestly speaking, this is your leadership.
So, guys, what I think is important about that clip from Charles is that obviously he's talking about the political divide that has occurred with digital assets. And that really started during the Biden administration. For anybody who's new to this show or to digital assets in general, we had to cover this on a daily basis from basically 2021 to 2024. Every day there was an anti-crypto narrative promoted in the market. Whenever Gary Gensler would go on CNBC, it was a guarantee that he was going to give us some negative news in regards to XRP, and he wouldn't even address many of these other technologies. Well, Charles Hoskinson is talking about how that's a bigger issue for the lower class people, for the middle class Americans, for people like myself and the ones who are in our live chat who look at crypto as an opportunity to expand their wealth and preserve their wealth here heading into the back end of the 2020s. I think that Charles does make a great point that this issue should not be political, and that the people who are politicizing this issue, they're missing the bigger picture, which is that this is a great opportunity for wealthy people to become wealthier and for lower class Americans to move into the middle or upper class over this next half decade or so. I think our community understands that very well, so I'm not going to hammer that home too much. But Charles Hoskinson, once again, on this Conspiracy Friday, sharing some very strong messages. Also, we did see this major announcement yesterday. Michael Saylor reportedly filmed an episode on the Joe Rogan Experience yesterday in Austin, Texas. If you believe that they're going to release a Michael Saylor on Joe Rogan episode, throw a 1 in chat. If you think this is fake news, throw a 2 in chat. But let me just say this. This would open up the eyes of millions of people to the power of crypto, to the power of blockchain, and of course, to the power of cryptocurrencies. There are millions of people out there who still think that cryptocurrency, it's a fad, it's a short-term narrative. I disagree. And I think that this market is just beginning to ramp up here in 2025. Now, I am going to close out today's video with a funny clip of Brad Garlinghouse here, getting the people hyped up on this Conspiracy Friday. But I wanted to address some of the donations before we wrap up today's show. Like I always do, we're going to address the donations before the end of the episode, and then we'll bring it home for you guys. So big thank you to anybody who enjoyed the content for today. Somebody said, is this show coin operated? Let me see. Pronounce Near-R-E-us. Neurus? I think that's what you're getting at there. Big thank you to you, my friend. We appreciate you. And I see you every single day. So massive thank you for the $20 donation. Chris Palmer said, good morning. Glad to be here and never miss it. Sometimes I have to watch the live, but I never miss a show. Shout out to you, Chris Palmer. Outstanding commitment there from the Good Evening Crypto community. Noah Bennett with the $4.99. And a big thank you to Chris for the $5. Noah Bennett stated, the price is crashing. Hodl me and tell me it's going to be okay. Noah, it's absolutely going to be okay. I can say that with very strong certainty. Noah with another $4.99. Thank you, my friend. It's all making sense. Serious people are being forced to confront their assumptions that they had about DeFi. Now, that's probably in relation to Kevin O'Leary. As we showed you over the weekend when the prices crashed, it was costing $1,000 to send a $2 transaction on Ethereum. That's real data here. Happy Friday, Crypto Warriors. Thank you, Abs. Big shout out to Mariah. Big thank you to you, always here every single day, and we appreciate you every single day. Joe Weber said, call me Mr. Buy the Dip. I know what I hold. Firmly believe that I will be retired in 5 to 10 years. As a 30 to 40-year-old man, love you guys at GEC. Shout out to Joe Weber. I'm sure there's thousands or at least hundreds of people in the live chat right now who will be retired because of their crypto wealth over the next 5 to 10 years. Ghost commented with the $1.99. Big thank you, my friend. Abs, with all the good news on XRP, why is it dropping? XRP is just following the liquidity of the market. Guys, if Bitcoin continues to go down and to the right, we're not going to see anything exciting for these altcoins. I don't think there's any big decoupling event that's going to happen this fall. And I've done some long form videos breaking that down. So if you want me to talk about that, I can kind of go through that information once again and explain what I think is going on. Big thank you to K Capone. I think it's Christian. I think that's his name out there with the $4.99. He said, what's up, Abs? How many companies do you know that are adding XRP as a treasury? I believe it's anywhere between 8 to 10 assets. 8 to 10 different companies are in the process of adding XRP to their treasury. And that does not include the news that we reported on today. So I just want to give a huge thank you, guys. I'm going to have a 5:30 p.m. Eastern update coming at you later on in the day. Now, again, we showed you yesterday, 13,000 banks now have access to Ripple products. We have some massive new updates that I'm going to expand upon during today's video. Now, I do have to preface this. This is a morning clip. Brad Garlinghouse actually commented on this post 2 hours ago. LFG, guys, you know what that stands for. But we're going to play this very brief clip. There are some swears in here. I just wanted to preface that. This is Brad Garlinghouse getting the people hyped up on the Friday morning.
Get the fuck out of bed, bitch. Go. Get up. And they got go. Gotta wake up, bitch. Get up. Get up. Get up.
I mean, come on, guys. If that's not AI gold, I don't know what is. A lot of people talk about the negatives of AI. This is a prime example of the positives of AI, guys. But I want to give a huge thank you and shout out. We got 4,500 people here. If you enjoyed this content, show us some love. Smash that like button. Now, people were requesting this one. Get your shit together, baby. We can still say that here on GEC. And I encourage everyone, go out, touch some grass, hug some family, enjoy the weekend. Someone said that gave me the creeps. In many ways, yes, it did, but it's pretty funny at the same time. That's an awesome AI video. I thought that was a great way to kind of give you guys some laughs on this Friday. Like I said, the crypto market, we're going to give you an update probably on Saturday or Sunday. I'll have to determine kind of what's open for the schedule. We will be back 5:30 p.m. Eastern time in just a couple of hours. So we love you guys. We appreciate you all. If you want to copy many of the same strategies that we're doing, here's an example.
Here we go. Ready? I lost the groove.
That was the wrong clip, guys. Shout out to my boy, Johnny Krypto. But we love you guys. We appreciate you all. We'll see you in about 4.5 hours. And like we always say, we'll see you all in the next one.
You're going to be so proud of your president, and I don't care about that. But you are going to be so proud of your country because we're going to turn it around and we're going to start winning again. We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet. We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more.